Today on GreenCars the Podcast, we're taking our act on the road to the Electrify Expo in Long Beach, California. This expo puts the thrill of driving all things electric right in your hands with demos from major auto, e-scooter, e-cycle makers, and so much more. And all the action starts right now. Welcome to GreenCars the Podcast, where we talk about all things involving hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electric vehicles. I'm Trish Glose.
And I'm Dave Nichols. Today we take over the Electrify Expo. We're going to find out about the demo rides. We're going to talk to industry insiders, everything having to do with EVs right here.
I just appreciate that they've let us outside to interact with other humans on this podcast.
Yeah, we don't get that much.
No, we don't. This is 1 million square feet of all things, like you said, electric. There's vendors here, there's booths, there's demos. A lot of smart people, a lot of very creative people.
Oh, yeah.
And one of those, BJ Birtwell, the CEO and founder of Electrify Expo, I got to chat with him early this week as everybody was setting up, really to find out where his vision came from. BJ Birtwell, CEO and founder of Electrify Expo. And this is North America's largest electric vehicle festival. And you just told me it started in 2021. This is just a baby out here.
Yeah, we're still just a young company. It's been insane to see the growth of Electrify Expo over the last, not even 3 years. It was less than 3 years ago, we produced our very first festival on a grass field in Orange County, California. And now we're an 8-stop festival that goes around the tour and incredible venues like this. So yeah, we're really grateful and blessed to be able to produce such a great festival and honestly give people their aha and light bulb moments, just like I had several years ago.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, this light bulb moment. Where did this vision come from for a festival like this?
Yeah, so I'm not your typical like EV advocate. I was an EV skeptic. So I actually hated EVs. I was a car guy. So I grew up tweaking on cars, tuning cars, gas cars, right? I always wanted to make cars faster and look cooler. So when I couldn't hear the vehicle and I couldn't smell the vehicle, I kind of felt like this vehicle lacked a soul. So you would never get me behind a vehicle like that, right? And so I had my whole mind made up about electric cars before I had even driven one. How often do we do that? Right. Make up our mind about something before we know all the facts, right? So that was me. And then I finally drove one. And then when I drove one, I had my light bulb moment. I'm like, I had this whole thing wrong. Like these are fun cars. They're not appliances on wheels. So once I had that moment and had my light bulb moment, everything changed for me. And that was kind of the genesis of this idea around Electrify Expo.
Okay. What was that car? Do you remember the car that you were behind the wheel?
Oh, yeah. It was a Tesla Model S. Yeah, it was back in 2016.
So I guess, again, did you want to look to educate people? Did you want to share that passion? Or, I mean, what was like kind of the genesis of all of this?
Well, today, what I want to do is I just want to provide experiences to people because, we're not here to tell people what they should do. What we're here to do is create a big sandbox and allow people to play in the sandbox and figure out what it is they want to do. Do they want to go electric? Well, this is a place where you can experience everything. You're probably going to go to electric if you come through an Electrify Expo. You can be a skeptic like me, but by the time you leave, you'll probably be a convert because, you can't hop behind the wheel of an electric car or hop on an e-bike and hop on a skateboard or a scooter and not smile. Like, smile is infectious, and who doesn't want to smile more? So it's kind of hard to leave here as a skeptic. So this is the idea of it, is just give people these experiences. So we have 1 million square feet of experiences here, from everything to cars and trucks to bikes, scooters, skateboards, kids products. There's even watercraft at some of our stops. So really, we just run the whole gamut and then let people decide, is electric for them?
You mentioned that first event. What did that look like? I know it was in 3 cities, right, across the country, those first few events. What did those look like? I'm assuming not what we see here.
Oh, it was us at our worst because it was our first event. So if you wanted to see us at our worst, that's what it was. But it was still for the industry. It was still a breakthrough. And we knew that when we saw the line wrap around the venue that we had something special. I remember Hyundai coming up to me at that event, their head of events, and just looking at me and being like, okay, we see what you're doing. And so then we've just kind of grown from there. But yeah, it was a very, small event in comparison to what we're doing today.
Okay. You said 1 million square feet here. And really, it just occurred to me when you were saying you really want to see people smile. You're kind of electrifying happiness in this area, right?
Well, there are, it's very rewarding to see families come because this is a family event. So we're an outdoor open air festival. You can't produce this mood inside a box stuffy wall convention center. You just can't do it. I've seen them try to do it. I see they try to do EV experiences in the basement of a convention center, but it just doesn't work well. So you bring everything outdoors, you pump it full of music, good food, and then you just attract a lot of young and middle-aged families. And, the kids are on the electric, go-karts, and then dad's taking a ride on an e-bike and mom's checking out the new, 3-row SUV. It's something for everyone here. So it's really working well.
You mentioned the city. You're in several cities across the country. What are those cities, and why and how did you pick those? Why those particular cities?
We're data geeks, so we just look at EV registration data and we look at hand raiser data, and we just see what cities are having the fastest rate of EV adoption, and then we plop a festival right in there. So, this year we'll be in Orlando, which was a massive event that came out of nowhere, total surprise in terms of the attendance that came in there, but it was just incredible. Then we went to Phoenix. Now we're here in Long Beach. We go to Denver, San Francisco, Seattle, New York, and Austin. So we, and in Austin, we're on the Formula One track in Austin. So people are literally hopping into an electric car, but they're not just doing it on the streets. They're doing it on the F1 track. So these are experiences unlike, you'd have anywhere else.
What kind of feedback are you getting, especially since it's grown since 2021? What kind of feedback are you getting from this expo?
Just to keep growing it, I'm a brand guy. My background is in branding and marketing and advertising and building event properties like this. So, my job as the owner is just to continue to evolve and innovate the festival. And so that's what we're going to do. We're never going to just kind of rest in our laurels. We're going to continue to add more entertainment, add more experiences, continue to evolve the experience so it never gets stale.
This is quite the production. Looking around, there's been hundreds of people milling about trying to get all of this constructed. What does it take to put on a festival like this?
It takes a really good number 2 guy named Jeff Nordstrom. He's a head of operations, but we're in an industry that's battling the media narratives. It's battling a lot of things. And so, it takes a lot of grit to make sure that, we are still producing a festival and providing this environment. But the payoff is when people come into this festival and we see the demand for electric cars here on the street. Like, we're not reading about it in a magazine or reading about it in on a website saying that, this is what's happening to the EV market. I feel like we are the best barometer of what's happening in the EV market, because there's no place like Electrify Expo where you see, here in Long Beach, we'll do over 30,000 people here this weekend. And these are all people who have paid money for a ticket to come in, drive a car or a truck or a bike. Like, these are people who are lower down in the purchase funnel and who are ready to buy. So all we see are people who are more e-curious than ever about electric cars.
Okay. And we ask everybody on GreenCars the Podcast this question: what kind of car do you drive?
I drive an all-electric Porsche.
Oh, so not just a run-of-the-mill, average.
I like to go fast. So what else would you expect from me? No, I got a Porsche Taycan Turbo S. Goes 0 to 60 in about 2.8 seconds, and I love every minute of it.
I think that's my co-host's dream car. Yeah, that's his dream car.
Well, let's go. Go for a ride. Let's go.
Okay. Here we go. Gotta go. Bye. BJ Birtwell, thank you so much. Thanks for chatting with us. And this is incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We are back on set with Chris Paine, producer, director, writer, maybe best known for your documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car. Thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we have to ask, because Chris is actually here shooting for a new film. And what's it called?
Yeah, what's the skinny?
Well, we couldn't, if our first film was Who Killed the Electric Car, you couldn't really claim that they were dead now, could you?
No.
It's been a revolution. And about 6 years after that film, we did Revenge of the Electric Car. And that was about Tesla starting and GM going bankrupt with their truck strategy and trying to get the Volt going. And now it's been another, 10, 15 years, and look where we are, this tsunami of electrification on vehicles of all kinds, and also how that's impacting everything else, like jobs and different kinds of opportunities. So it's really in the middle of something really big. So this film, Rise of the Electric Car, if we stick with that title, is really about everything that's changed and what the new questions are.
Beautiful. Let's go back a little bit and talk about your journey specifically. When were you first interested in filmmaking, and was it always the focus of, this electric vehicle movement?
I moved to Los Angeles to break into Hollywood and so forth. I worked for a feature film director for a while, and I was, kind of going in circles. And I saw the internet come up, and I went, oh, this is going to be a big opportunity. So I left show business to do a tech company for a few years. And when we sold that and I finally had some money, I went, I want to do movies again. But the movie that had to be made first was about what the heck was happening with my electric car.
Right.
And since GM had recalled it without any explanation and so forth, it became a film. And so I got pulled into filmmaking in part because I really cared about why these vehicles weren't being allowed to be sold, how come I couldn't know about them and things like that.
And it seems too, in this world of electric vehicles, everybody seems to have their role, right? You have your activists who are out there fighting the good fight. Did you feel your role was really as that conduit, the storyteller, to connect what was happening to people who maybe didn't know?
It started off with activism. Because those of us that had these, GM made 5,000 electric vehicles back in, as you know very well. And when they and all the car companies managed to reverse the mandates and so forth and started to repossess them and crush them, we thought, well, the people have got to know about this because we were lucky enough to have them. So we started shooting and creating these events, like we had a funeral at a graveyard for a car. And we thought this footage would be great for like the 60 Minutes or something. But nobody wanted to tell the story. I think a little bit because a lot of their advertising is based on cars. And if you offend the car companies, you might not get advertising back. So we ended up having to do our own documentary, and I sort of switched from being an activist into being a filmmaker. And the trick, I think, always with these stories is not to get too angry about things, even as an activist. Who are the characters? Who do we fall in love with? What do people want to come out with feeling? And so the part of me that's a storyteller has gotten very interested in that, even though very deep down I'm an activist.
Well, and you have an EV1 jacket. Where the heck did you get that?
Yeah.
This is the GM gave us all EV1 original leasers a jacket. And this is when they were really interested in promoting the vehicle and making it a success. And, halfway through that journey, they decided they weren't going to promote it anymore. So whenever I come to these trade shows, I wear my original gangster EV1.
Nice. I like it. And you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but activist at heart, and you created this documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car? And is it somewhat silly to think about where we are now? We're here at this Electrify Expo that's all things electric. Does some part of it seem a little silly to you sometimes?
Oh, it's amazing.
Right.
Are you sure you picked causes before? And so many causes these days are lost causes. They don't, you can't save the redwood forest you were fighting for, or things are going backwards in a lot of ways. So as an environmentalist, I was super excited to see that electrification has happened in spite of all the obstacles it has. It still has. But I would say this just makes me so happy to see people and the new generation just picking this up and saying, this is what we're doing. And we're moving forward on it.
And how much can you tell us about the actual movie that you're shooting? Can you tell us where it starts and where it ends up? I mean, how much can you actually tell us?
Yeah, well, I mean, like your podcast and who your guests are and so forth, it's a bit of a puzzle. And documentary films is an improv process where you need to find characters who can really deliver with the charisma some of the ideas that you're hoping to explore. Mm-hmm. And they might take you on journeys you didn't expect and not the one that you had in your mind. Oh, the film is going to be this. So you have to keep letting go of what you think the film is and follow what your characters are up to, even if it isn't exactly where you thought you'd be going. This film, we're really looking at answering the question, what about the battery?
The battery.
Yeah, that's how because no matter what it is, from a skateboard to, electric airplane, it's the batteries and in our cell phones. And there's a lot of misinformation about batteries. Every battery you buy is equated to human suffering in the Congo, or we're going to be digging up the ocean for your precious minerals So I want to look at that and say, okay, really? Is this true? Well, what is the life cycle of a battery? What's the BS? What's the truth about it? And try to get into sort of the guts of it. And around it is the bigger story of us moving away from fossil fuels. And boy, what a slog it is because we're so attached to them. But I think electric vehicles have not just taken cars out of fossil fuels, but all kinds of things, efficiency for homes and battery backups for houses. So we're trying to kind of do a broader story within that core story.
When you start a movie, a documentary, is the whole goal really to shine a light on something maybe people weren't aware of, to answer questions? The battery, for instance, we hear a lot of negative comments. That's the number one reason people don't want an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
Right. So is that your goal when you're going into starting this documentary? You're finding the characters right. You're shining a light on something, answering questions.
Yeah. It's like, I had the same question. What about the battery?
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, I know that all the information I'm getting from the internet cannot be correct. And some of it is correct. And so trying to sort through it, and I don't have the answers. So I think good documentary filmmakers really have to leave themselves open to hearing things they don't want to hear. Like, the batteries really are a problem. What is it? What is the problem? And then hopefully, in terms of answering the question, you're letting the audience go on the journey with you, and they can make their mind up about. And even in Who Killed the Electric Car, we didn't say GM is to blame. We said, here's what happened. And so, audience, what's your takeaway? And I think that's true on the battery question and about the future of EVs too.
Well, and Chris, have you seen anything today? What's the most interesting thing that you've seen at the expo today?
Well, your podcast booth's pretty nice.
Sweet. That's what we like to hear. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I thought one of the more interesting things was a guy who's selling lithium fire extinguishers that are designed for batteries.
Right.
And I knew that they have different classes of fire extinguishers. I mean, it's so classic. Like, oh, the batteries are going to catch fire. And of course, there have been some terrible fires. But it's nothing compared to the amount of times that gasoline catches fire. It's just all the time. But you hear about the batteries. But this guy over here has a fire extinguisher is just designed for containing lithium fires, which is great because your ordinary fire extinguisher might not do it.
Right.
On the rare occasion you'd have a fire.
And I'm sure in this line of work, as you're creating these movies, you are finding these characters. Some creative, brilliant minds out there that are really changing the planet for good, right?
Yeah, or there are the big, brilliant minds out there, for sure. But there's a lot of people that are just doing it, stepping out for the first time and, all right, I'm gonna start selling e-bikes.
Yeah.
And e-bikes is really the hidden story of the EV revolution right now, as you know, being here with all these e-bikes. That's the big success story. So I think, our film might have the word cars in it, but it's probably going to be about bikes as much as it is cars.
I love it. Awesome. We also hear you're starting a podcast.
We are launching a podcast at the end of the summer. We're trying to do 10 episodes before we launch, so we don't have the pressure of, where's your next podcast? But part of it is to rebuild our audience because our films, we only make films every 5 years. So our last film was about artificial intelligence. That was like 6 years ago already. And the nice thing about podcasts is they're not nearly as expensive to make. The whole crew, it takes effort, but.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. But someone goes, why are you doing a podcast? There's 50,000 podcasts. I'm like, well, there's 50,000 paintings. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't be painting. It's like. Yeah.
And where can people, do you know where we'll be able to listen to that podcast?
The podcast is going to be called Please Accept Our Apologies.
Nice. Okay.
It's a nod to Kurt Vonnegut. Dear future generations, please accept our apologies. We were rolling drunk on oil. And I just like this idea of generational apologies because us baby boomers, even those born at the end of it, have a lot of it to account for. And I think that, it's good to talk about things like that.
And we have to ask, you mentioned the battery and a lot of the new movies may be based on that, but what would you change about electric cars, if anything?
Well, I think the movie's one of the central questions we'll look at is that I don't think it'll be batteries are not particularly photogenic or exciting
at all
characters for love stories or car chases, maybe for car chases. But it's definitely going to be a part of it. And I already forgot your question.
What would you change about electric vehicles, if anything?
Well, I'd like them all to be lithium LFP batteries right now instead of nickel, cobalt, lithium chemistries. And it's too bad that the the Inflation Reduction Act or whatever it was gave incentives to American-made batteries that were still using the old technology. I understand we're in a tariff war with China and all that, but we should be helping battery makers here make stable, great batteries for the future. So I wish they all had LFPs, and I wish they were less expensive. Especially for doing conversions. And one of the best things I saw down here was a integrated conversion thing. You probably talked to them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That seemed like a really smart way to go.
Yeah, really
I
smart.
mean, who doesn't have a 74 pickup truck they kind of wish was electric if it would perform? Everybody.
100%. I totally agree. We ask everybody on the podcast, what are you currently driving? What's your car?
I am driving a Model 3, 2023 Model 3, the one with the stock.
Nice.
Yeah. I had a 2018. I just traded it in for the 2023 model where they're discounting them well. I went, okay, I love my car. So,
Beautiful.
And then we have a Model X 2017 that has 420,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Yeah. That's going to be a character in our movie because people think, oh, well, batteries, what about when they, what happens to old batteries and old cars? And one of the great things about dang electric cars is they're basically like washing machines. They just go forever.
Yeah.
The motors last, and internal combustions break down after 150, 200, but electric cars keep on rolling.
Yeah.
So that's our family car.
Very nice. And we also ask if you could snag any EV out there, if money was not an issue and you pointed to one, what would it be?
I probably try to snag one of those electric airplanes they have.
Oh, yeah.
In prototype form. I'm a little bit afraid of heights and flying, but I sure am intrigued by the, small passenger battery power. That's going to make a big difference. If we get off of jet fuel, man, that's going to be awesome.
It'll be huge. Yeah, for sure.
That's great.
All right. Well, Chris Paine, producer, director, and writer, we look forward to all the new things coming out, and congrats on all the success.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We have cut Dave loose here at the Electrify Expo to check out something really cool. Let's see what he's up to.
Hey, Trish, I'm over here. I'm with Jack from Rivian, and we're talking about all the beautiful vehicles that they brought here today, including a new one I've never seen before. That's sort of a rally vehicle. Tell us about it.
Sure. So that's R3X. And after R1, our flagship, we're coming out with R2, which is basically a smaller SUV. After that will be R3. And then this is R3X, which is kind of the rally racing off-road sort of all-out version of R3. And it'll have a wider track width. It'll have a higher performance. And it'll be a lot of fun to drive for sure.
Well, I got to tell you, there's a whole kid zone here to give kids something to do. But this is really where they come. They come to Rivian because the side panels open up and they can crawl around inside. It's the wildest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. There's a lot of function in the sort of gear tunnel. And that's one of those things that is just a kind of unexpected happy accident, that it's also a great place for kids to play other than all the stuff that you can store and put inside while you're on the go. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jack. I appreciate your time today.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, I'm here with Maggie at Toyota, and they've brought an amazing array of vehicles for us today. Tell us a little bit about it, Mag.
Yes, thank you so much. Welcome to the Toyota display at Electrify Expo. We are showing off some of my favorite Toyota vehicles that represent our electrified lineup. We have so many electrified vehicles in the lineup, and today we are showcasing our Grand Highlander Hybrid. We also have our RAV4 Prime, our BZ4X, our Toyota Prius Prime, and our Toyota Mirai.
Amazing, amazing. And so what do you think of this? I mean, this is the biggest EV expo I've ever been to.
So I have been attending Electrify Expo with Toyota for the past 3 years, and every year it has gotten bigger. And I remember the first time we were here in Long Beach, and compared to now, we have more manufacturers and we have better attendance. There are so many people here today. So it also goes to show how much interest there is in low emission and zero emission vehicles. And it's just really exciting to see this event in particular grow.
Well, thank you so much, Maggie. I appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
We are back with Matt Tusky, founder and CEO of ChargeWay. So for those who don't know, I want you to explain ChargeWay. What is ChargeWay?
ChargeWay makes electric fuel simple. That's what we.
Period.
Period. It's a way to just simplify how to understand EV charging. So my background's automotive, and I realized when I got my first EV that you're not really buying a new car, you're buying a new fuel type. And I realized that there's a lot of engineering to it. And so ChargeWay was designed to take all of the engineering for EV charging, how it works based on the car you select and based on the station you might want to go to, and simplify it down into colors for plug types and numbers for power levels. Higher number means you can charge up faster.
Thank you for making it simple for people like me. I appreciate it. So when did this vision come to you to create ChargeWay?
When I screwed up a road trip with my wife when we bought our first EV.
Oh, wait, I got to hear this story.
So yeah, I convinced my wife we're gonna get this car because I think it's great. She said, "You're the car guy."
Okay.
And so we bought it, and then we went on a road trip, and I called the resort and I asked them if they had EV charging. They said, "Yeah," and I said, "This is so easy." And we showed up, and as we were checking in, I said, "Hey, we need to plug in our car."
Right.
And the person behind the check-in counter said, "Oh, let me get the maintenance guy." And then some guy with a tool belt walks out,
Oh, no.
and then walks me to a wooden shed that was on the other end of the parking lot. And my wife the whole time is just being very polite. And he says, "Yeah." And he flips open a little 110 outlet and says, "There you go, boss."
No.
And I said, No, that's not a charging station. He said, "That's what everyone else uses. I don't know what you need." And I thought, and this is over a decade ago now.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, well, I got this wrong. How did this happen? And so at dinner that night, my wife and I were talking. She said, "Can I just ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah." And I was like, well, I could feel it coming. She said, "Well, no." She's like, "Seriously, you are a car guy.
Yeah.
You've been in the auto industry for decades and you couldn't do this. So how would I do this?"
Oh, wife bringing in the truth.
It was a very just candid moment. I thought, is it really that difficult? And then as I dug into it, I realized, oh my gosh, we're not actually asking people to buy a new car. They're buying a new fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad your wife had dinner with you that night.
Yes. And she still does, which is, this
okay,
is
that's
nice.
good. That's good. That's good. But very, very obvious question, right? Like if you can't do it, you know everything about cars according to her, and you couldn't do it. So how am I supposed to do it? So from that moment, 10 years ago, how has ChargeWay grown since then?
Well, it basically, that was the inception of ChargeWay and the fact that
Sure.
we had to solve the problem. By we, it was me at the time. And really what it turned into was me just becoming a researcher. And I thought, okay, I know a lot about automotive. I do. I mean, there's plenty I could still learn, but I know a lot. But I really didn't understand the energy sector. And so I then made it a point to just start digging into what was happening with electric vehicles at the time. And what I realized was the stakeholders that were making it possible were the engineers who were making the technology happen. But then there were the electric utility companies and policymakers that were all oftentimes collaborating on how do we accelerate this. And what I realized was the automotive conversation wasn't happening. There was no one from OEMs or dealers oftentimes in the room. And so I realized, well, this is okay. You're trying to sell cars, but no one from the car world is here. But I realized we're not asking people to buy a car. It's really a new fuel type, and you don't even see it that way yet. And so that was really what I gained out of the research was we have to reimagine how we're talking about energy and electricity. Because the incumbent fuel that exists that everyone uses today is called regular or premium, and it's on every street corner, and it takes 5 minutes. So if that's what you're trying to supplant or maybe get someone to switch from, you better bring your A game when it comes to how you're messaging the product.
You also had the challenge of really opening up eyeballs to this fuel, this alternative fuel, I guess, right? I mean, was that a challenge?
Well, I think the hardest part is if you think about it and go watch any NFL game Sunday night, you're going to see an ad for fossil fuels in some way.
Yeah.
We see signage and when we're on the highway, gas, this exit, and there's brands we're familiar with. We see signs that are 100 feet in the air saying fuel here. That doesn't exist for electricity as a fuel.
Mm-mm.
So we are effectively building these products that are functional for electric cars and charging stations, but there's no outbound messaging or visual marketing for it. And oftentimes this gets dismissed by the industry still as like, no, people will figure it out. And my response is, why? Why would they be compelled to if they can just keep buying what they know? They want they want something to be easy. So that's really what we found was that it was just the visualization of how to use the fuel and just visualizing it in general, because electricity for most people is kind of like magic.
It is magic.
Yeah.
It is like magic. And that's the biggest thing we hear on this podcast that keeps people from buying an electric vehicle or maybe a plug-in. I don't really know about charging. I don't want to do it. It seems rough. And there is a need for charging stations across the country,
Yeah.
right? Reading an article in 2016, there were 7 electric vehicles per every charging point. Now there's 20
Mm-hmm.
electric vehicles per every charging point. So talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges we still have to get over, right?
Well, I think it really comes down to lifestyle, right? So the lifestyle of owning a gas-powered car is you could be rich and live in the hills, and you still got to go to a gas station. You could be a college student who's just starting out, and you have your first apartment, and you don't have a place to park your car except on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to go to the gas station.
Yeah.
Gas has been the great unifier for the last century when it comes to car ownership. But with electric fuel and electricity, you actually have different lifestyles associated with how you can fill up. So if you have a home where you can fill up at night, most of your fill-ups are at home. But if you don't have that option, you still got to go find your fill-up. And I think that's the biggest aspect of just understanding that little soft differentiation between the ownership experience is important.
Mm-hmm.
But people still don't buy cars for a 98% use case. They buy them for the 100%.
100%.
Yes. It's like if the family comes to town, I need that third row. Or what if I need to drive to Miami tomorrow? Why?
Right.
I don't know. What if I wanted to? So those things are, I think, the biggest challenge we need to appreciate how lifestyle is affecting the electric fuel experience.
Yeah.
And then brands that are producing the cars and then the charging networks that are putting out stations have to think about that.
So do you see a big issue being that there's obviously not enough charging stations, but also maybe that they're not as visual? Like the sign, the icons on the freeway.
Sure.
Like, are those all play a role together?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, and half the time you're looking for a charging station, if you have an app like ChargeWay, we'll show you where stations are. We do our best to show you a photo of the location so you have some sort of visual cues as to what you're looking for. If it's just an app that says charging here and it's just on it's just a graphic, you have to then be the one who wants to go figure out how to find it. And I think that's where, again, marketing is a very, very, well, it's not an easy, it's not an easy thing. It's one of those things, if the best ones out there, like Steve Jobs and the other brilliant marketers of the world that have existed, they knew how to tell a story that met people where they were. And the product they were then marketing or service they were marketing, that actually provided some sort of benefit and utility.
Yeah.
When it comes to an EV, it's still, at the end of the day, you're just buying a car. The electric fuel experience has benefits that are different based on your lifestyle. And that, to me, is a big part of that narrative. But visualizing electric fuel as a product is fundamental to EV success, and we're still not doing it.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate that you're making charging stations for dummies like myself. For real, because if it is your first time pulling up to a charging station, it can be really confusing.
Oh, yeah. There's different charger types. There's different connector types. There's different power levels.
Yeah.
There's amperage and voltage to contend with and how that impacts the kilowatt rating of the charger. There is the kilowatt hour size of your battery pack and the voltage of your battery pack. And again, I just did that for 15 seconds. And depending on who you are, they might have said, done listening.
I'm done.
So if instead I can say, oh, you bought that brand new Ford Mustang Mach-E, it goes to green stations. It's a level 6 car. That means you can fill up in about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That changes the conversation for how they understand how it fits into their life.
Right.
And that, to me, is it's what we're doing with ChargeWay. And I think the opportunity is still very real that we can change how we discuss the fact that it's not you're buying a new car as much as you're buying a new fuel experience.
If you want more people in EVs, we've got to change what's happening with the charging part of all of this, right?
I mean, the chargers are getting out there. That's what's interesting. So Tesla, as an example, did such a beautiful job of making an experience with electricity as fuel that was very seamless.
Yeah.
Because they kind of made it like the McDonald's of charging. It's like every time you rolled up, the charger looked the same. And you're like, I want a Big Mac. I'm plugging in. It's going to be 20, 30 minutes. They did such a beautiful job with that. But the ecosystem they created was something that was all in-house. Mm-hmm. So every other automaker has always been, we partner with these other companies. We source software or other products from here. That stakeholder connectivity is something that it still needs to be resolved in a lot of ways for other companies.
I want to ask your thoughts on some of the manufacturers that are creating their own charging system. I guess for you, it seems like your vision is just charging for all, make it easy, really simple for everybody. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and by their own charging system, I guess, are you referring to putting out their own charging networks?
Yes.
So, one thing I think is interesting is marketing is a very difficult thing to do. And if you're, I dare to say lazy with it, but if you're trying to be sneaky with it, you can find yourself saying, hey, we have a network that we built that isn't actually a network from that OEM. It's actually just data and charging stations from other networks that you are calling your thing. And that's, we can't be that lazy about this. Is because people expect what they hear. If they say this is from one network, they expect a uniform experience.
100%.
And if they arrive and all of a sudden it's like, oh, that charger was a different style, or it was, oh, wait, there's a subnetwork to this network thing, or there's a different connector, or why is this power different? And people don't want to have to contend with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we're seeing is that there's the way that I'd educate myself as someone from the auto sector on energy, we need to see that much more clearly happening from the auto sector, from the OEM side on the way down. And those efforts are now being made because I think they've had some pain along the way for approaching the marketing of their cars that is the way they've known.
Yeah.
And they're learning, oh, we needed to do a better job with that on behalf of our customers.
I do want to ask you too about geography with these charging points, because I know obviously in some parts of the country, it's really not a big issue, but in other parts, Hawaii, for instance, sales there of EVs are booming, but charging stations almost don't exist there.
It's interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been to both Maui and Oahu, and I've had conversations with folks that have EVs there. And to your point, there's not a lot of public infrastructure there.
Right.
But depending on this gets down to that lifestyle use case. We have a combination of people that own homes in Hawaii. We have a combination of people that are a lot of times renters. But you have to then think to yourself, okay, they're not going very far because they're on an island. They have kind of a confined experience.
Yes.
But if they still have to go find their fill up, what does that mean for them? That means we still, even in a confined location like an island, we still do need to have fast charging that is accessible for people, or slower charging like levels 1 and 2 that are at a convenient location where if they do park their car overnight, it still is typical. Like it's like they charged at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hawaii is a kind of maybe a unique use case in that respect. But around the country, if we're talking about the contiguous U.S., you then have states like, Wyoming and Montana. These are, big sky country where you need to have on the interstate highly visible fast charging that can get you back on the road.
Yeah.
And it's there, but we lack the visibility of it in many ways still.
I'm picking up what you're laying down, Matt. And you may have already touched on this, but how is the technology changing? How are we moving forward?
Well, it's evolved and really been revolutionary in a lot of ways in the last decade.
Yeah.
If you think about what fast charging was even, 10 years ago, especially 10 years ago, this was, fast charging. It's 2 hours. It's kind of like, oh, it's faster than 8,
Yes.
which is true, but it's not a 5-minute fill up. But there are now cars on the road today that are able to charge up in 15 minutes. But then you need to know you're at the right charger to do it.
Sure.
And so to me, that's the educational factors, because it's not a uniform experience every time. And that's where people are coming from, is the gas experience is uniform every time. We do need to help people understand how they navigate those options based on the car they've selected and based on what they want to have, which is, do I want to fast fill up to just get back on the road, or do I have time to stop for lunch on this road trip?
Sure.
And that's what ChargeWay does, is we then will, again, identifying it helps someone know, if I drive a car that is level 7 capable and there's a level 7 charger there, that's a 15-minute fill up.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I want to stop for lunch. I'll use a level 6, which is like 30 to 40 minutes, or maybe a level 5, which is an hour.
Okay.
That's where you can visualize how charging fits into your use case. And that's what ChargeWay was designed to do.
I love it. We're going to wrap up a little bit, but I do want to ask, if you could change one thing about electric vehicles, what would that be?
Well, if you'd have asked me that question 2 years ago, even a year ago, I'd have said, we need one plug type. One plug type is fundamental.
Yeah.
And a year ago, the industry gravitated from using what was called the CCS standard, which everybody was using except Tesla. Tesla has said, well, we've got our own plug type. Now everybody's switched over to the Tesla connector because they have, one, a much more widespread network that is reliable, but their plug design was very elegant. It's the same design plug you'd use at home or away from home, and it's simple and small and lightweight. It's great. So that would have been my answer then.
Okay.
Today, I would say, even here at Electrify Expo for the Industry Day, a big part of the conversation today was basically communication. And what is the messaging we're letting people know about? I think, as we've shown, the technology works, but we need to hand it to people based on where they're coming from in a way that is not condescending, in a way that is informative but not educational, and in a way that helps them feel like they are part of the process without it feeling like they should be nervous.
Yeah.
That all comes down to appreciating consumer psychology and understanding how to craft a message around technology that is approachable.
Do you ever look back and see really how far you've come?
Yeah, every morning when I look in the mirror and I see how gray my hair is now, yes.
All the stress.
It is,
right?
It is just like, wow, that's still getting worse. It's funny though. It's again the idea for ChargeWay, that meal, that dinner I had with my wife, when she asked that question, that inception, that's over 10 years ago. And again, we're working on a communication aspect of the technology that is a window into a much bigger conversation for stakeholder collaboration and alignment. So in the last 10 years, everything we've accomplished with ChargeWay we were early because early adopters and innovators wanted to learn the tech and they really felt compelled to dive in and be different. But the mass market and consumers that have everyday lives that are busy, they need it to fit in their life. And I think the time is, we were early with ChargeWay in our software.
Yeah.
But I think the timing is great for now that we have the right solution at the right time. So I'm excited about what the future holds for that.
Fantastic. What kind of car do you drive, sir?
I personally, EV-wise, currently have a Tesla Model 3.
Okay.
I have owned a Chevrolet Volt first generation.
Nice.
Several Chevrolet Volt second generation.
Okay.
And my wife has had a Chevrolet Spark EV, and then she had a Chevrolet Bolt EV, and she now has a Tesla Model Y.
Love it. If you could have any EV out there, right? That's a good one. What would it be?
I think the Lucid Sapphire is pretty incredible.
Okay.
If ever the Tesla Roadster 2.0 would come to market, I would love to have that. But frankly, I was just at the Rivian booth and the RX-3 is killer.
You cannot help but just like stare at those vehicles.
They have a very beautiful design language. They
Gorgeous.
have an iconic headlight look. Some people love it, some people hate it. I think it helps them stand out. But their attention to detail in the design, fit and finish, the materials they're using.
Yeah.
I think as a brand, they have a very, very great story they're telling right now.
Yeah.
And as product goes, and the R2 they have coming, I think is great too. I also like just smaller vehicles. I don't need a tank.
Well, I was going to say, you're in Oregon, so you may need something that can handle the rough and rugged Oregon outside, right?
The Rivian brand aligns pretty well with that.
Right.
But then again, you've got other trucks and other products coming to market. I think, as we see these legacy brands that have traditional, gas powered cars go electric, we'll be very curious to see what they bring to market that would be compelling for, again, an Oregon lifestyle.
Exactly. Matt Teske, founder, CEO of ChargeWay. Thank you so much, not only for your vision, your passion. We should probably thank your wife, too.
Yes.
What's her name?
Anna.
Anna. Thank you, Anna, for asking those tough questions at dinner that night.
She asked the tough questions, and she's also been very patient as I have had this journey for a career.
She put you on track, sir.
Yes, she did.
All right. Matt Teske, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Want to learn more? Just download the ChargeWay app. And I've somehow lost my co-host again. Let's find Dave, see what he's up to.
There's one more thing you need to see at the Electrify Expo. It is what appears to be a 1932 V8 hot rod, but in actual fact, that's just an aluminum housing over electric motors. It's an EV. Amazing.
So did you have fun?
I did. I worked my butt off out there talking to everybody.
Sure, you worked your butt off. I think you did okay out there.
Still have a little butt, but
What'd you learn?
Oh, one thing very important. When you're checking your charge, never look at battery.
That's good. Okay, that's a lot of good stuff. I was here obviously talking to a lot of very creative and fascinating people, and I feel a little smarter after all of these interviews that I conducted, so very exciting. This has been a blast here at the Electrify Expo in Long Beach.
Yeah, we'll be back for more next time.
Stay informed, stay charged. We'll see you next time. Follow us at GreenCars HQ. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Email us, thepodcast@greencars.com.